Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're basically embarking on an ancient detective story. If you've ever read the book of Genesis, right around chapter 6, you've probably hit a wall of absolute bewilderment. It's like the text takes this sudden sharp turn away from standard genealogies into this completely bizarre narrative. We're talking heavenly beings, monstrous giants, and a world plunged so deeply into corruption that it literally triggers a global flood. It feels like walking into a movie halfway through, right? We're missing some crucial exposition. So today we're setting out to solve these abrupt mysteries found in Genesis 6 by using ancient, forgotten texts to piece together the lost context. Listen to this verse straight from the standard King James Version of the Bible, Genesis 6:4. There were giants in the earth in those days, mighty men which were of old, men of renown. Now, if you read this as a beginner, your very first reaction is probably complete confusion. And honestly, your confusion is totally validated. It is incredibly cryptic. Like, who are these giants? Where on earth did they come from? Why are they called men of renown? The standard text gives us this fascinating little glimpse, but it completely skips over all the juicy details. Okay, let's really dive into this. We have to ask, what is this ancient text actually talking about? Why does Genesis jump straight from this mysterious union of heavenly beings and human women to God looking down in verse 11 and seeing an earth totally filled with violence? What's the missing link connecting these giants to the absolute destruction of the world? Well, to find that missing context, we actually have to look completely outside the standard Western biblical canon. And that brings us here. While Western traditions lack the explicit details of this event, the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church actually preserves the missing pieces. Their biblical canon includes a vastly expanded narrative of these ancient events, primarily found in a text called the Book of Enoch, or Book of Enoch. What are just these brief, kind of enigmatic mentions of giants and sons of God in the West are explicitly unsealed and detailed in this incredible Ethiopian tradition.
Now you might be wondering, why have I never heard of this text before? Well, the Book of Enoch is often classified by Western church traditions as pseudepigrapha or apocrypha, which is just a fancy way of saying it's an ancient text that was ultimately excluded from standard Western biblical canons. But here's the thing, it wasn't lost to history. It has been preserved in its absolute entirety, but only in the Ge'ez language, which is Old Ethiopic. So by looking at this preserved text, we get a completely different, eye-opening vantage point on the mysteries of Genesis.
Let's tackle the first big textual mystery of Genesis 6. Verse 2 simply states that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives. But it never actually stops to explain who these beings were. Who exactly are these sons of God crossing this massive cosmic boundary just to take human wives?
Well, the Ethiopian tradition gives us a direct answer. Enoch chapter 6 identifies these sons of God as a specific group of angels known as the Watchers, or egregori. The text doesn't just broadly refer to them either, it gets incredibly specific. It even names their leader, an angel named Semyaza. So these weren't just vague spiritual concepts. According to Enoch, they were a distinct, highly organized, rogue faction of heavenly beings.
And it wasn't just a handful of them. We're talking 200 of these watchers who made a calculated pact. They descended upon Mount Hermon. And right there, they bound themselves together by mutual imprecations. Basically, they swore this dark oath together to carry out a plan of descending to Earth and taking human wives, knowing full well it was a strictly forbidden union. The sheer scale of this angelic rebellion really sets the stage for the chaos that follows.
Now, what's absolutely fascinating here is the incredible contrast this reveals. Genesis 6 vaguely describes the offspring of this union as simply giants and mighty men which were of old, men of renown. I mean, it almost sounds heroic, right? But the Book of Enoch reveals these beings were absolutely terrifying. It details how these giants turned to cannibalism, devouring birds, beasts, reptiles, and eventually turning on humanity itself and drinking blood. Talk about a tonal shift.
These massive, terrifying creatures are known as the Nephilim. The Book of Enoch describes their immense scale, noting that they consumed literally all the acquisitions of men. Humanity simply could not sustain their appetites. And this explosive lore directly answers that lingering question from the standard text. Why does Genesis 6:11 say the earth was filled with violence? It wasn't just everyday human squabbling. It was the biological corruption and extreme, monstrous violence of the Nephilim completely ravaging the planet.
But the physical corruption and the giants, that was really only half the problem. We have to shift our focus here, because the expanded canon asks another vital question. What else did the Watchers bring to humanity? Genesis 6:5 mentions that human imagination was only evil continually,
but it completely skips over how humans became so rapidly advanced in their wickedness. The answer lies in the highly dangerous introduction of forbidden knowledge and corrupting technology. One of the chief fallen angels, Azazel, along with other watchers, didn't just cause biological chaos. They taught men the art of warfare. They showed humanity exactly how to forge swords, knives, shields, and breastplates. They also brought the fabrication of mirrors and jewelry, and remarkably, introduced the use of antimony for eye makeup and beautifying eyebrows, a practice the text explicitly links to a rise in altered perceptions and ungodliness. Other watchers taught sorcery, incantations, and astrology. It's fascinating how this totally grounds the mythic story in the physical world, linking mystical rogue angels to the tangible, everyday origins of weapons, the occult, and surprisingly enough, cosmetics.
As all this violence and dark technology ravaged the earth, we are given a heavenly perspective. Enoch 9 tells us that the archangels Michael, Uriel, Raphael, and Gabriel look down from heaven. They witness the massive bloodshed, and they bring the agonizing cries of dying humanity before the Most High. It's basically a cosmic legal appeal, and this perfectly explains God's grief mentioned in Genesis 6:6. It is this exact moment that triggers the divine decree. God decides to send the flood to cleanse the earth, bind the fallen spirits, and establish his covenant with Noah to build the ark.
But as we analyze these sources, it is absolutely crucial to look at this impartially and acknowledge a really fascinating theological nuance preserved right alongside these texts. While the Book of Enoch provides this very literal angelic interpretation of the events, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church also utilizes a traditional commentary known as the Endemta. This commentary offers a harmonized alternative perspective that grounds the entire story in human morality rather than cosmic rebellion. And this brilliantly illustrates how two vastly different frameworks explain the exact same event. The Sethite view from the Endemta commentary offers a completely different allegorical lens compared to the literal angelic view we just discussed. In the Sethite view, the sons of God aren't rogue angels at all. Instead, they are the righteous human descendants of Seth, who lived holy lives on a mountain. The daughters of men are the descendants of Cain, living down in the valley. So the fall in this interpretation actually represents the righteous humans breaking their vows of separation, descending the holy mountain, and being led astray by the worldly desires and aesthetics of Cain's line. It's a powerful, highly practical teaching about the dangers of worldly compromise.
So we're left with a really profound question. Does uncovering this lost context change how we view these ancient mysteries? Whether you lean toward the terrifying cosmic rebellion of the Watchers and the massive Nephilim, or the tragic human compromise of the Sethite view, there is simply no denying that the expanded Ethiopian canon provides a stunning key to unlocking Genesis 6. It fills in the blanks of a story that has puzzled readers for centuries, transforming a few cryptic verses into a vibrant, terrifying, and deeply complex historical narrative. I really hope this explainer has sparked your curiosity to look deeper into how ancient texts speak to one another, and honestly, what other mysteries might just be waiting to be unsealed.